what it is. Welcome to the Last Show podcast. My name is Kortney Williams. I'm the host of the Last Show podcast. This is how it gets down. I am a stand-up comedian based out of Tampa, Florida, and that's what I do. You know, I usually reverse that order. That really threw me off, man. I'm a real robot over here. Subscribe to the show. Subscribe. Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google, TuneIn Radio. You know how we do. You can also go to my website. That's KortneyShaneWilliams.com, Kortney, ShaneWilliams.com. You can see where I'm performing my live stand-up comedy shtick. I'm going to be out on the road pretty soon, but I ain't going to tell y'all where. Because those that know don't tell, and those that tell don't know. If it was some of your business, you'd know already. Man, where's Kortney been for the last 2 months? He didn't post anything on his website. I've been about my father's business. All right? Stay up out of it. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Kortney Shane. That'll actually let you know where I am. At Kortney Shane. It's at Kortney Shane. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Yo, man, the album about to come out, man. This right here. It's about to come out pretty soon. I think next month. As soon as I get the details, I'll let you guys know. Elevator Style will be coming towards you. Fingers crossed we get that thing on Sirius XM Radio and we can make some paper. Working with 800 Pound Gorilla Records. And we are here. Look, this podcast, I'm going to talk about Chappelle's new special, The Closer. Now, I always feel weird when I do these shows. By the way, featured music on the podcast, which you guys cannot hear. I'm dual live, triple streaming this podcast here. I think I'm going to post it directly to Instagram and some other places. Normally, I don't do it. I'll just do clips. But context is going to be very important. The word of the day is context. You know what I mean? Context and cancellation. You know what I mean? If you ain't got the context, you can just get canceled. Like if Urban Meyer had context for the reason he was getting a lap dance in that bar, perhaps, you know, it wouldn't be so much heat on him. But then again, if he wasn't Urban Meyer, there wouldn't be heat on him. You know, the fact that he's Urban Meyer's a mercenary is really his biggest issue. All right, context. So I post this thing as a whole. Gosh, where do I start? I'm gonna try to do this in like 15 minutes. But I'm gonna try to breeze it quick. There's several ways that dissect. Featured song on this podcast, Gloria Gaynor, "I Will Survive." That is very important. You guys can't hear that on Instagram, you know, because I ain't trying to get blocked. But featured song on the podcast, Gloria Gaynor, "I Will Survive." So this special dude is as a comedian and as like, you know, just a normal person, somebody that may be paying a little more attention than somebody else. And then as a whole, okay? As a comedian, you know what? It actually made me go through a lot, like every emotion I went through when I had the fortunate opportunity of working with Dave Chappelle, you know? When the special started out, I was like, wow, this is cold-blooded. The title, the intro, it didn't seem completely polished, you know? I mean, who am I, right? But it was very time sensitive, obviously, because a lot of the stuff in the special had just sort of happened, right? You know, the baby and all that kind of stuff, right? So it was very time sensitive. So, but as it starts and you're watching, it's one of those things like, oh man, this is happening. The title of the special, the closer, the whole thing. As a comedian, the closer is usually the last, you know, joke you tell before it's the end of the show. A lot of people are like, oh man, you want to have a great closer. That's a philosophy I actually never participated in, because some of the greatest comedians and comedians I respected, they would just close on a joke or close on the last thing. But the closer never was like, oh man, that's where you get your standing ovation. I think I've gotten like one standing ovation. It was like 5 people stood up. I was like, yo, y'all can sit down. I mean, we're obviously, it's like those people that clap when the pilot lands the plane. It's like, you know what I mean? Y'all are just glad I gave an honest try. 3 people stood up. It was amazing. But that's like the joke, the closer. So I understand what the title meant. So you go in with this idea. All right, cool. The closer, and I'm watching the special. And as a comedian, all those emotions came back to me. First emotion came is like, wow, this is actually happening. And then the next emotion came to me is like, man, this dude is really good at comedy. Like really good, like amazingly good. then it's like, wow, he may be the greatest comedian I've ever seen in my life. Ever seen in my life. And this is probably 2012, 2013. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I can't believe this dude's that good. Like, I had no idea, like, he was this good. And this is before the Netflix specials, right? Then I became a combination of envious and angry because there's still a competitive gene in me. My goal is to be the greatest stand-up comedian ever, period, point blank. That's the goal. So when I saw that, I was like, I'm not that. I am not that. So then it's that anger of like, man, you should be better. It brings that competitive sports drive thing back to you. I remember, when I played sports, high school, long time ago, long time ago. And I remember the practices were way more intense than the games. The games were easy. It's like, remember when Chris Bosh went to Miami? He's like, hey, man, once we practice, the game's going to be easy. You know what I mean? That's how the practices work. The intensity level of trying to take another man's spot. It's like taking another man's livelihood. That intensity is just crazy. And it came back to me watching that dude work. That level of anger, that level of intensity, that competitive drive, that whole thing, And then the next emotion is, I got to be better. That right there is the standard. What I just saw is what I'm chasing, not the people around me. When I go out to the club and I go and perform and I do a weekend or a headline, it's like, oh man, they laugh, everything was good, and the audience comes up, oh, you're great, oh, the show was good, oh, da-da, and it's like, oh man, great. That's not the goal. That's no longer the goal. I've cleansed my palate, all right? I really like the taste of that filet, but I need to go for that Wagyu, you know what I mean? I really like, the taste of that success or the taste of that laughter or the taste of that look on the audience's face. But that's not actually what I'm going for. I really like doing a show and it's a showcase and being the best comic on the show and it not being close. I love that. But that ain't the standard. I got a fresh, clean palate. The way Chappelle was able to put stuff together on the special. And I actually went back and watched because I'm like, did I miss something? And I did. The very first special, because obviously the transgender thing is a big deal. The very first special, he actually made a statement when he's something to the effect of, I'm jealous of the product, of the progress of them. And they've beat black people at the disenfranchised Olympics or something like that. The very first one. Then it went on and on and on and on and on. And now we're here. People are upset, allegedly. I don't know how many people are upset. You know what I mean? This is a talking point because people have nothing to talk about, right? This is a talking point, okay? So as a comedian, that's the cycle of emotions I go through as a comedian. Now, someone that is actually kind of paying attention and watching what's going on and listening to what he's saying when it comes to the LGBTQ community and using them as a way to prove a point. That's it, Doug. Part of me is like, this is a big rationalization. Like, is he really this good that like on the very first special, he left the tea leaf that he was going to wrap up at the end special? Or did he do what I may have done, which is you put something out and then everybody gets angry over a 4-minute chunk of basically 3 hours. All right. Because the first one was actually 2 specials. It was 2 specials. The one in Texas, the one in Los Angeles. That a 4-minute chunk out of 2 specials is what everybody talked about. And then you go back and you're like, yo, did I make somebody upset? Did I make them mad? Like, I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm sorry about that. I've done shows where, matter of fact, there was one show I did and I mentioned suicide in part of the show. I remember somebody waited for me. They waited for me after the show. Them and their husband, I assume they were married. It was a male and a female and they looked like they were together. And I remember I was selling merchandise after the show. They waited for everybody to leave and they stood about 4 feet away from me. And the lady came up to me and the man didn't say a word. She came up and she looked at me and she said, suicide's not funny. And she walked out of the show. That's all she said. Never saw the lady again. I went home that night and I'm like, man, I didn't mean to, make anybody mad, I said it because I thought it was funny. That's it. I didn't think about any other thing. And then you rationalize it, then you go back and I look at the tape and I watch it and I'm like, oh, what happened? I assume he may have done the same thing. If I did 2 hours of material and everybody's upset about 4 minutes, like what happened? Did I miss the mark? Sometimes it happens, right? But then the other part, it's like, man, what if I could twist this into something else and make some larger statement? So part of me is like, I don't think when he did the first special, he was like, I'm going to throw this 4 minutes in and then wrap this 4 minutes until eventually I'm going to do a show where it's like 45 minutes of this. I don't know if it was that, or if I don't know if he fell into that and then twisted that. I felt like when I saw the last special, there was a bit of rationalization. It's like, I just don't think. But then there was like, I'm going to twist this and make some larger societal point. So if you're looking at this in this larger societal point, there is something to be said for that. There's something to be said for the struggle of people, including the LGBTQ community, including transgender people. There's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for that story that he told where eventually the transgender person committed suicide. People that are transgender community, have a much higher likelihood of committing suicide than all other groups of people. Much higher. There's something to be said for that statement put in there. Not, I was going to say slyly put in it, but it's not slyly put in there. It's put in there. There's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for black people and their struggle. There's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for this. Selfishness. A lot of times, when people are struggling for something, they tend to equate it to black people in America and those struggles to black people, whatever faction of people it tends to be. It's like, man, it's very easy. People will say this all the time. Man, this is like slavery. What? It's like, whoa, this is like slavery. Man, this house is terrible, man. That's ghetto. This house is ghetto. What? Every atrocity or everything bad is equivocated to the black experience in this country. And I say everything as a broad sweeping statement. I don't want you people to go, well, it's not everything. You know what I mean? I'm Irish. And no, I'm talking about America. Everything. So when it comes to the LGBTQ community and someone would say, well, man, they've progressed so far past black, like what are they doing that black people aren't doing? Like what is that community that black people, why is that community getting stepped over? Another thing that happens really slyly in this country, in America, is when there's progress and there's things being, progress being made. Let's say, for instance, let's say something like, Black Lives Matter or something like that. It's like, oh, well, the cops, they shouldn't be killing black people. And then once it's caught on tape and you can see the police shooting black people, you can see the injustice of black people. And there it is. Then someone will say, well, all lives matter, Kortney. You're right. Black people the police shouldn't kill black people, but they shouldn't be killing any people. All lives matter. It's like, whoa. How did the struggle of black people that people have been arguing and yelling and telling you about all of a sudden get co-opted by all lives matter? How did the progress get co-opted by another group? It's not like we're in the comparison, atrocity comparison Olympic. Who has it worse in America? Is it Cuban people? Is it Jewish people? Is it gay people? Is it transgender people? Who? Every time there's some kind of progress, it gets co-opted. That's the perspective. And that's something that he said in the first special that kind of went over. I heard it and I was like, cool. But I didn't really go deeper into it until this one. I started examining that more. So that's part of the big picture. The other part of the big picture is that the under-recognized groups in this country of America are all struggling for equality. Whoever you are, Haitian, Dominican, Cuban, gay, straight, women, groups. We're talking about basically everybody but white men are all struggling to get some level of equality, whether it's through legislation or however you go to get that level of equality. Everybody's looking out for their own group because all these groups haven't gotten theirs. Okay? Everybody's looking out for their own group because all the groups haven't gotten theirs. The communities become selfish. How do you keep people enslaved? You keep the slaves fighting amongst each other. How? Why did the Rainbow Coalition, oh, we going deep and unplayable, ladies and gentlemen. The Rainbow Coalition, why didn't they like that? Because Fred Hampton had this idea of like, well, why don't we just get all the groups together and we can all just work together at the same time, right? So you see that. So somebody makes progress, let's say, the Cuban people in Miami, right? They make this progress, you know what I mean? And they have this struggle, SOS Cuba. This comes out. And then people say, well, where were they during the Black Lives Matter? Like, where were they last year? Cubans in Miami were throwing rocks at Black Lives Matter. Cubans in Miami were harassing black people at Black Lives Matter protests, harassing them. A year later, SOS Cuba. Okay, cool. That's a worthy cause and something that shouldn't be happening. It's a big deal. People that don't live in Florida may not. It's a big deal. Then that kind of goes away. Then we got Haitians at the border. I didn't see no SOS Cubans for the Haitians at the border, but I saw Haitian people stand up. I saw Haitian people say something. Everybody in America that's underrepresented group is selfish because the truth of the matter is no one is where they want to be. It's not fair. It's not great. It's not good. But from a black perspective, when there's some progress made, then it becomes, hey, man, y'all should just be fighting for everybody, Kortney. All lives matter. It's like, hold on. Why, when it's my turn, do I have to take a step back? Why, when it's my turn, do I have to feel bad about taking? Why is this even a conversation we have to have? If you know it's wrong, stop doing it. That's that part of the special. Now, the human part of the special is, some of that stuff was just foul. Like funny or not funny, some of the stuff is foul. And some of the comedy is just straight up foul. And I'm going to tell you, man, a lot of the people that are out here all about this Chappelle, I'm down with the cause. He did the right thing. It's all the people you don't want in your corner. Let me tell you something. As I watched the special, I'm like, oh, man, it's not that, whatever. And then I went on Twitter, and I saw Jason Whitlock. Thought it was great. And I was like, oof, I don't like my allies. Anytime you're doing something, you're struggling towards something, and then you look around at all the people supporting you, and you're like, whoa, hey, I don't like any of these people behind me. Hey, man, why is Tucker Carlson in my car right now? Like, anytime Tucker Carlson thinks my comedy is great, like, I've got to stop doing comedy. It's the way it is. Anytime that dude's in my vicinity, anytime that, and you know who that dude is. It's not Tucker, but you know Tucker. Anytime you see Tucker, everybody got a Tucker Carlson in their neighborhood. And you know, hey, Tucker Carlson. Anytime they knock on the door, hey, man, I really like what you did with the house. Like, well, I got to move. It's time to get out of here, dude. If I'm at Starbucks and Jason Whitlock is behind me, I got to go to another store. I got to stop going to Starbucks. That's it. I'll start drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And you know, if you listen to this podcast for any length of time, how I feel about Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts be selling you that gas station coffee, man. Dunkin' makes coffee by the pot. Hey, man, all Dunkin' Donuts coffee, you got an orange handle on it, man. They let you know what the deal is. Dunkin' still serve decaf. It's like, what? I don't rock with that, man. So the making fun of transgender people, it's not cool, man. You know, it's not cool. And the truth of the matter is, in the special, they're used as a pawn to make this larger point. In this last special, like I said, I don't know if this was a grand scheme of things in the first, but in this last, they're just used as a pawn. They're just used as a tool. A tool where if you take a step back and look at the larger message, makes sense, but they were used as a tool, they were used as a pawn. It's a couple things in the special that I thought like were very interesting. If you watch it again, or if you haven't seen it yet, you want to pay attention. There's two people in the front row, two white people. And there's not many white people in the audience. I mean, this is Detroit. I don't know where in Detroit it is, but apparently black people got all the tickets to this show, except for two. There are two white people up front. It looks like a mother and a daughter, I'm not sure, but one of the girls kind of has purple ends on her hair. It's like, back in the 90s. Like she has this real like Gwen Stefani aura about her, right? She has like this purple in the back of her hair. The Brewers, they beat the Braves 2-1. It's too bad. And about 40 minutes in, when he starts to get on this material, the audience dies laughing. I think it's the beet juice joke. I think, and the audience dies laughing, and they don't crack a smile. They don't crack a smile. As a comedian, when you're on stage and the audience is laughing and you see two people not laughing, like part of it is a challenge of like, man, I'm gonna get those people to laugh. But then you reach a certain level of comedy where you're like, I don't even care. I'm glad they're bothered because I said that to bother a certain faction of people, and I'm glad they're bothered. Not to make this about me, but kind of, it's my podcast. It is about me. There's a certain way I open the show on the new album that is coming out soon. Just a little teaser. And I did this, in Texas. I did the opening of that show at a show in Texas. And I watched the audience's reaction, and it wasn't going well. And deep down, I was ecstatic because that's exactly why I did that. It's exactly why I wrote that. For that exact reaction. It's exactly why I decided to film it and record it in a place like Seattle, because I needed people to laugh at the joke. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't do that in Oklahoma. I can't trust y'all with my vulnerability. I had to do it in a place that I knew was going to be accepted and put it out there. So when I saw those two people in the audience that weren't laughing at all, then you see the people behind you, like Jason Whitlock and Tucker Carlson. It's like, maybe this is not cool. Maybe it is a little over top. Perhaps it's not as tasteful, or it's not tasteful, but comedy's not tasteful. Perhaps it's not cool. Perhaps it did cross some barrier, some line. Perhaps it wasn't great. Perhaps, to make fun of a group of people like that and to just keep going on and on and on about it for hours and hours of comedy, it probably doesn't make certain people feel good, And that's when I'm like, maybe I need to check like what I'm thinking and what I'm saying. This idea of somebody being canceled. I mean, it's Dave Chappelle. You actually can't cancel Dave Chappelle. The only way you can cancel Dave Chappelle is stop showing up to the shows, Because normally when people get canceled, you take something away from them. But you can't really take anything away from Dave Chappelle because he gave it all away. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you make a homeless man more homeless? You don't. You're homeless. It's people like the great philosopher Ice-T once said. People ask, why does the horror movie always have a horrible ending? It's because it's a horror movie. It's supposed to end horribly. Like that's what it is, dude. You can't take something away when something not. The only thing you can do, honest, is stop showing up to the show. But how he's conducted his business, especially the second half of his career, there's nothing to take. Dave Chappelle ain't out here headlining no movies. I mean, Dave Chappelle's not the baby. Like he's just doing stand-up and you watch the show or you don't watch the show. Or Netflix pays for it or they don't pay for it. Or Netflix takes it down, which they're not going to take it down. Or they don't take it down. That's it. There's nothing to cancel. There's nothing there. You don't have a receipt. There wasn't an actual transaction. It's put out there. It's in the universe. Then it's up to you to decide whether you want to watch it or not. But you can also call somebody out for being distasteful. And it's also something that he's definitely took. Matter of fact, I know he's thought about it because he said it on the special that he thought about it and saying that he didn't want people to feel bad. He also said, I'm done making jokes about him, which I believe. I actually don't think he's going to bring it up again, which now it becomes something you have to think, or not have to, you think about. That's it. It's in the ether and it's done. Now it's something you think, which maybe he wanted you to think some weird way. I don't think there was a grand plan, but I do think that last special was intentional. That was on purpose. Everything in there was on purpose. That was done that way on purpose. And also, I know this. If this is something and it comes out and people support it, like Jason Whitlock, like Tucker Carlson, like all these people, all of a sudden that are behind, we're behind you, Chappelle. All these people that would never invite you to the cookout are all of a sudden laughing at your jokes. I'm telling you right now, he'll disappear and it won't happen again. Period. This is the reason he left the Chappelle show. The famous story he told, and it's been told several times. Came in Chappelle show, had a sketch, people laughed, and it was him doing a pixie of a black person, and he didn't like the way the people laughed, and he stopped doing it. When Jason Whitlock is behind you, you got to stop liking the way the people laugh. Perhaps this is the end. We'll see. But I don't think it's going to be because of any kind of reaction. I just think it's going to be because it's because. Let's wrap up the show. Thank you for tuning into the Last Show podcast. My name is Kortney Shane Williams. Please, please, please subscribe to the show, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, and TuneIn Radio. New album coming out. I'm going to let you guys know all the details once the album come out. But we're going to do it like that, man. And the podcast is back. That's right. I'm done working. You know, I'm back. I got a haircut too. My hair is beautiful right now, dude. This is the type of hairline that LeBron pays millions of dollars for. You understand? If LeBron had my hairline, he'd make Space Jam 3. That's how sexy I'm looking right now, dude. So you guys, please, if you haven't seen how sexy I look, check me out on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, the whole thing. It's been real. Take it easy. Talk to you next time. Peace.